Welcome back to Arms and Arguments, the podcast that doesn't sugarcoat the fight for Western civilization. I'm your host, Nick Lewis, the voice that refuses to let mainstream bury the truth under misinformation labels. Today, we're not talking hypotheticals. We're talking about the single most dangerous national security convergence since 9/11. Mexican drug cartels, the same people flooding your streets with fentanyl, that's already killed more Americans than every war since Vietnam combined. They've been sending their sicarios straight into the meat grinder of Ukraine, not to fight for democracy, not to wave blue and yellow flags on TikTok. They went there for one reason: to get PhDs in modern drone warfare and urban guerrilla tactics, paid for by American tax dollars and Ukrainian and Russian blood. And they weren't alone. Intelligence chatter, open source reporting, even Ukrainian counterintelligence itself has confirmed that the same volunteer pipeline that let the cartel hitmen slip in has been eyed by jihadist networks, Al-Qaeda affiliates, ISIS remnants, Hezbollah operators with Latin American passports. Many people, and I mean a growing chorus of analysis, border agents, and yes, even some in Congress, are now saying the unthinkable out loud. Al-Qaeda is already here. Sleeper cells are in place, and the cartels are the ferrymen. If that sounds like a Tom Clancy fever dream, buckle up. By the end of this monologue, you're going to understand exactly why the airspace over El Paso got shut down in February of 2026, why Guadalajara is burning right now, and why your quiet suburban street could be the next battlefield. Today, we argue that the war is no longer over there. It's here. So let's load the mag and get into it. Let me paint the picture with facts, not feelings. Back in 2022, when the world rushed to defend Ukraine against Putin's invasion, Kyiv opened the doors wide open to the International Legion of Territorial Defense. Tens of thousands of foreigners, idealists, adventurers, ex-military, yes, opportunists, poured in. Screening was rushed. Language barriers were real. Interpol and the DEA helped, but the volume was overwhelming. Ukrainian counterintelligence, the SBU, started getting tips almost immediately. Spanish-speaking volunteers with suspicious backgrounds. They forged Salvadorian or Colombian papers asking specifically for drone units. One name that leaked, a Mexican national calling himself Aguila 7. His real identity tied to Mexico's elite GAFE Special Forces unit, the same unit whose deserters founded the Zetas cartel. He wasn't there to die for Zelensky. He was there to learn how to order DJI Avata into a guided missile that can take out an armored truck from 2 kilometers away. According to Intelligence Online, in July 2025, and follow-ups, cartel recruiters, often through private military cutouts, were actively shopping for men with combat experience. They wanted drone pilots. They wanted electronic warfare specialists. They wanted guys who survived the drone-saturated hell of Bakhmut and Avdiivka, and they got them. Small Wars Journal broke it down in January 2026. Mexican and Colombian operatives infiltrated using false humanitarian cover, forged documents, and links to former insurgent groups like FARC. They targeted Spanish-speaking battalions in eastern Ukraine. Once they were embedded, they requested and received assignments to specialized drone platoons. Why? Because Ukraine had become the world's premier live-fire laboratory for cheap, lethal, first-person view drone warfare. Think about what that training looked like. I've studied the syllabi from places like the Protection of the Future FPV drone pilot school outside Kyiv. 4-week intensive 30-hour theory on aerodynamics, video frequencies, and payload integration. 30 hours in simulators learning to dive bomb moving targets while while jinking through GPS jamming, 60 hours of actual flight time on real FPVs, takeoff, loiter, terminal guidance, crash into target detonation, then tactical modules, coordinating 2 drones at once, one for recon, one for kill, night ops with thermal, countering Russian EW by switching frequencies mid-flight, building your own drones from scratch in a bombed-out warehouse. The RSI Europe program, which is run by veterans, adds another layer. 5 modules stretching 4 to 6 weeks. Intro to UAS construction, simulated dogfights, live flights under simulated fire, full mission planning with battle damage assessments, and integration with ground forces. Graduates walk away able to plan, build, fly, and fight with drones that the way a Marine platoon fights with rifles and grenades. Now imagine a 28-year-old CJNG sicario, already a killer, already comfortable with violence, going through that pipeline for free on someone else's dime in a real war. He comes home not only with a participation trophy, but with muscle memory for carpet bombing a rival plaza, thermal spotting Border Patrol agents at night, or dropping 3-kilogram shaped charges through the sunroof of a police SUV. And they didn't just learn drones. Ukraine taught them modern, urban, and hybrid warfare the hard way. Street-to-street fighting in cities, turned to rubble. Small unit fire and maneuver under constant overhead surveillance, using civilian infrastructure as cover, rapid barricade construction to channel enemy columns into kill zones. They ran night ambushes with drones providing overwatch. These are the exact tactics we're now seeing in Jalisco, Michoacan, and Guerrero after the February 22nd, 2026 killing of El Mencho. The CJNG kingpin taken out by the Mexican Special Forces. Within hours, coordinated attacks erupted across 9 states. 252 roadblocks, burning vehicles, forming choke points. Elite 10-man cells hitting National Guard convoys with drone strikes followed by ground assault. Snipers, RPGs, and yes, explosive FPVs raining down. Mexican media described it as irregular combat units with discipline and strategy. That's not street gang improvisation. That's trained Ukraine-honed doctrine. Let's get granular on the drone side because this is the game changer. Pre-2022, Cartel drones are toys, DJI Phantoms dropping grenades like ISIS in 2017. Post-Ukraine, they're a professional air force. CJNG now fields dedicated drone operator units and teams, 2 pilots, 2 spotters, 2 technicians, 2 security, 2 logistics. They operate in pairs, 1 drone with thermal camera loitering at 400 feet providing real-time overwatch, the second screaming in at 120 kilometers an hour, carrying 3 kilograms of C4 or ammonium nitrate shaped charges. Flight time on the DJI Matrice 300, they favor 55 minutes. Payloads enough to turn a Humvee into a fireball. Cost per drone under $2,000 when locally built. They've mastered Ukraine's favorite trick, fiber-optic guidance to defeat jamming. They've learned to fly nap of the earth through canyons to avoid radar. They practice swarm light, 4 to 6 drones overwhelming a single target from multiple angles. In Michoacan, they've done literally carpet bombing to displace entire villages that support rival groups. In urban Tijuana, 3 explosive drones hit the state attorney general's office in one night. U.S. Customs and Border Protection recorded 34,182 drone flights within 500 meters of the southwest border in the fiscal 2025 alone. That's almost 100 a day. Some are smuggling fentanyl. One seizure in Arizona netted enough to kill every man, woman, and child in Phoenix. Others are scouting, watching Border Patrol shift changes, mapping camera blind spots, guiding human and drug loads. A few are probing test response times. Then came February 11, 2026, the El Paso airspace shutdown. AA initially said 10-day closure for special security reasons. Trump administration called it a cartel drone incursion. 8 hours later, it was lifted. Official story. shifted to routine testing of anti-drone lasers, but local reporting and leaks tell a different tale. CBP had engaged multiple unidentified drones with prototype laser systems. Party balloons were mentioned as covered. Point is, the threat is real enough that they shut down a major international airport on the border. That's not theory. That's happening now. So why should the average American in Iowa, Illinois, Ohio, California, Florida, why should they care? Because the border isn't a line on a map anymore. It's a conveyor belt. Cartels control it. They're moving product north. Cash and guns are going south. Now they've moved trained killers and potentially worse. Let's talk about a terrorist angle that too many people want to memory hole. From day one of the International Legion, analysts warned this is a perfect vetting nightmare. The Sufin Center, EJIL talk, and even Ukrainian officials admitted the risk that ISIS or Al-Qaeda operatives could be slipping in under the chaos. Spanish-speaking jihadists from Latin America, they exist. Chechen fighters with Islamic ties fought on both sides. Reports of the Uyghur militants, North Africans, and yes, individuals with watch list flags circulated in 2022 and 2023 intelligence summaries. We know Hezbollah has deep roots in Latin America, the tri-border area, Venezuela, and Colombia. They run cocaine routes that fund Iranian missiles. They've got operatives with Mexican and Venezuelan passports. Al-Qaeda has had a presence in South America since the 90s. The nexus between narco-trafficking and terrorism is not new. It's called narco-terrorism for a reason. Now, add in the Ukrainian training into the mix. Hezbollah logistics guy learns FPV swarm tactics in Ukraine. A CJNG cell that already moves product for them gets the same training. Suddenly, you have non-state actors who can turn any U.S. city street into a drone kill zone. One well-placed FPV through a Starbucks window during rush hour, a swarm hitting a power substation, a thermal-equipped drone guiding a car bomb into a crowded mall. All tactics proven in Ukraine. And they're now in the hands of people who already operate with impunity on our southern flank. And the numbers, DHS data shows thousands of special interest aliens, people from terror-prone countries, people who are encountered at the southwest border since 2021, gotaways, tens of thousands more. Many people are saying Al-Qaeda is here, isn't conspiracy anymore. When the National Counterterrorism Center has issued warnings about Al-Qaeda's Yemen branch actively plotting homeland attacks, and now we have cartel tunnels big enough to drive semis through, which are being found with prayer rugs and Arabic graffiti. Think about the operational synergy. Cartels don't need to become jihadists. They need to rent their infrastructure for the right price, and these guys have billions. They can move a clean team of operators, drones, and explosives across the Rio Grande, the same way they move fentanyl. Once inside, those operators use the urban skills they've learned in Ukraine cities, blend with diaspora communities, establish safe houses, conduct reconnaissance with cheap commercial drones that you can buy at Best Buy and Walmart. We've seen the precursors, cartel drones over U.S. military bases in Texas and California, fentanyl labs in suburban homes, MS-13 in Trinidad, Aragua cliques enforcing territory with military precision. You got the bio labs being found everywhere. Now add on the Ukrainian-honed drone expertise, and the playbook writes itself. Americans need to be concerned. No, they need to be furious, because this is hybrid warfare on our soil. It's not tanks rolling across the border. It's death by 1,000 cuts, 100,000 overdose deaths a year, communities terrorized, sovereignty surrendered, and the people who enable it, the open border crowd, the endless Ukrainian blank check writers, they all act shocked when the chickens come home to roost. Look what's happening right now in Mexico. El Mencho is dead, but the CJNG didn't collapse. They've escalated. Elite cells with drone overwatch shutting down cities. That violence doesn't respect borders. When the heat gets too high south of the line, they push harder north. More smuggling, more reconnaissance, more potential terror facilitation. We've seen cartel narco tanks armored like Ukrainian BMPs. We've seen them weld anti-drone cages on vehicles, direct copy of the battlefield adaptations in Ukraine. We've seen them use Starlink for command and control, same tech that Ukraine relies on. These are not random criminals. These are learning organizations that treat the battlefield as a university. So what do? First, we have to acknowledge the reality. We have to seal the border, not with speeches, with physical barriers, technology, and rules of engagement that lets agents actually do their jobs. Second, we have to designate the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, full stop. That unlocks the full spectrum of tools we use against ISIS. Third, we have to audit every dime sent to Ukraine and trace where the training pipelines went. If American aid subsidized cartel war colleges, the American people deserve to know. Fourth, we have to harden the homeland. Counter-drone systems on the borders, cities, critical infrastructure. Fifth, arm law-abiding citizens, because in the end, the final line of defense is you and your rifle, shotgun, pistol, whatever you got. This isn't fear-mongering. This is pattern recognition. Cartels learned in Ukraine. Terror networks watched and learned. The southern border is the soft underbelly, and while politicians continue to argue about the root causes, the enemy is multiplying faster than our bureaucracy can spell a symmetrical threat. To every listener in a flyover state who thinks this is a border problem, your local cartel cell is probably already there. They own the fentanyl in your high school. Their drones can reach your backyard tomorrow. And if Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah decides the time is right, those same networks can and will deliver the trigger pullers. The argument is simple. We either fight this war on our terms with strength and clarity, or we fight it on theirs, in our streets, with their rules. Make sure you stock up on ammo, train hard, stay vigilant. The fight is here.